So let's look at how all of this could play out legally. Jeremy Saland was the former Manhattan Assistant District Attorney, the office that is investigating all of this. He's in Chappaqua, New York tonight. So Jeremy, I understand the thinking that former President Trump wanted to get ahead of this, wanted to energize his supporters, but what would make him think he's going to be arrested today?
You know, I don't know if he really thought he was going to be arrested today. A lot of this is controlling the narrative, controlling the story. Remember, President Trump's theme has always been, I'm protecting you from them. They're not coming at me directly, they're coming at me, but they really want to get to you. So if he controls that storyline that this is an unethical, political prosecution, well, then he could control the storyline that they, meaning law enforcement, who's out to get all of you, leaked it. And it's just a continuation of that narrative. And if he thinks it's coming, why not get out in front and tell the story as he wants to tell it?
Mm-hmm. So because you were the former assistant DA in Manhattan, can you take us, though, behind those doors now? What is your instinct telling you about what kinds of conversations are happening now? What's being weighed out here?
So I think what's going on here, the first and foremost is it's important that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office make the people know that this is not a political prosecution, that this is based on merit. And while some have called it a zombie prosecution, meaning it sort of died and disappeared and now it's come back, that's because they've been doing their due diligence. And we all hope that that's certainly the truth. And we deserve, or they deserve, pardon me, to let them prove their case should it go that way. But I think that is very critical, that it's the sharing with the public and giving them the confidence that this is a genuine, legal, moral prosecution.
So you just said something interesting there. We all hope that this is the case. Does that leave the window open? Is it possible that there is some political motivation here? Could he and they be right about that?
Anything is possible, right? I don't think either one of us could say that's not possible. But we'd like to think, and we ought to give credit to law enforcement to do their due diligence. And remember, they always have to prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's not just to a grand jury, which is a different body, establishing that there's reasonable cause to believe that a felony was committed, but they eventually have to get to a jury of the peers of the accused, in this case Donald Trump, and it's not going to pass their sniff test if it turns out this is a fraud, that if it turns out this is really some sort of political effort. So, you know, do I think that that's a concern? It should always be a concern, but it shouldn't color the investigation or color my view. Let's hear the evidence.
And to what you said about this being, you know, some people calling it a zombie case or a zombie prosecution, this investigation started a long time before the current DA took office. So why is this happening now? Why this case? Why not the January 6th case, not the Georgia election interference case? Is it just because it was the first one that happened?
Well, let's also be clear. There's different jurisdictions, and we're talking about Manhattan. And while Manhattan, New York County, often has its proverbial hands all over the place, across the world, across the United States, January 6th is not New York City. It's not Manhattan. So they have what they have. The evidence is what it is as it relates to New York. And the real, when you break it down, core to all of this is whether or not, as we understand it, that this $130,000 that ultimately went to Michael Cohen, Mr. Trump's attorney, was not recorded properly, and it was recorded as payments when in fact it was, pardon me, let me restate that, recorded as legal service payments as opposed to something else, meaning Stormy Daniels. That's what this is. We got to keep this tight. And the argument is, in the event that this was done, was there also an effort to conceal another crime or commit another crime which would raise this to a felony?
And one last thought. In the event, we don't know, in the event he gets indicted, how does this play out time-wise? I mean, are we potentially looking at someone who could be campaigning actively for president and undergoing a trial at the same time?
Well, he can certainly be under indictment and facing an impending trial, absolutely. Because if the grand jury votes an indictment, let's say they do it this week sometime, there's going to be a surrender within days or immediately, and then this case could take not just weeks, but months and months to play out, because there's a lot of novel issues that I'm confident the defense will try to exploit and address and say, hey, even though it may appear that this is a good case, there are real legal hurdles that are missed here, and it should be dismissed. So this is not going away anytime soon. You could absolutely see an ongoing case towards a trial coming up to an election.
All right, Jeremy Saland, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.